Testing sound for live stream. Try again. Testing sound for live stream. Testing sound for live stream.
meeting of North Tyneside Council's Audit Committee, which is being held virtually in accordance with regulations issued by the government, which enables local authorities to conduct their meetings remotely in the light of the current coronavirus pandemic. My name is Kevin Robinson. I'm the chair of the Audit Committee, and I will be chairing this meeting tonight. I'd like to inform everyone that this meeting is being live streamed to the public on the Council's YouTube channel to meet the requirements of the regulations that all members of the public must, as a minimum, be able to hear the proceedings of meetings. Before we move on to the agenda, I'm now going to ask each member and officer present to briefly introduce themselves so that everyone can identify with the participants in this meeting. As I've already said, my name is Kevin Robinson and I'm chair of the committee. And if I could therefore run through the committee members, beginning with Malcolm Wilkinson.
Chair, it doesn't look like Malcolm's in the meeting at the moment.
Okay, in that case, we could proceed to Councillor Debbie Cox.
Hello, Chair. Hello, everyone. Councillor Debbie Cox, member for Commonwood Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Naomi Craven.
Good evening, Chair. Naomi Craven, Councillor for Monks Eaton South Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Anthony McMullen.
Good evening, Chair. Anthony McMullen, Councillor for Wheatslade Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Janice Mole.
Hello, Janice Mole, Councillor for Camperdown Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Rankin. Okay, it doesn't look like Councillor Rankin's here. Councillor Paul Richardson.
Hello, yeah, good evening, Paul Richardson, Councillor for Monks Eaton North.
Thank you. And Councillor Judith Wallace.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm Judith Wallace, Councillor for St Mary's Ward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just say quickly, sorry, it's Councillor Craven. Councillor Rankin is putting his apologies in. He's running late at work.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Can I now ask the officers in attendance to introduce themselves, beginning with Janice Gillespie?
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. I'm Janice Gillespie. I'm Head of Resources and Chief Finance Officer for the Authority.
Thank you. Claire Emerson.
Thank you, Chair. Claire Emerson, Senior Manager, Financial Strategy and Planning.
Okay. Kathy Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Kathy Davison, Principal Accountant in the Finance Service.
Okay. David Dunford.
Thank you, Chair. David Dunford, Senior Business Partner in the Finance team.
Thank you. Kevin MacDonald.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'm Kevin MacDonald. I'm the Acting Chief Internal Auditor from the Internal Audit and Risk Management team.
Thank you. Mark Oldham.
Thanks, Chair. I'm Mark Oldham, Senior Auditor for the Authority on the North Tyneside side.
Okay. Vicky Soulsby.
Good evening, Chair. I'm Vicky Soulsby. I'm the Senior Risk Advisor for North Tyneside.
Thank you. Barbara McKee.
Excuse me, Chair. Barbara's just sent a message to say that she can see everybody but not hear anything. So Barbara Mackay is our Assurance Officer for Risk Management.
Thank you, Vicky. Stephen Reid.
Good evening, Chair. Stephen Reid, appointed External Auditor for the Authority.
Thank you. Stuart Kenny.
Evening, Chair. Stuart Kenny, Senior Manager, External Audit.
Thank you. That's the list I have. Is there anyone else present who I have missed?
Chair, I suppose it's me, Dave Parkin, who's the clerk for this hearing.
Chair and Councillor Martin Rankin have actually dialed in. Thank you.
Good man. Thank you, Martin. In that case, we'll move on. For today's meeting, we must first of all deal with some formalities. For example, apologies for absence, declarations of interest, and confirmation of minutes. The agenda papers contain 6 reports requiring decisions at this meeting. The committee will be asked to pass the exclusion resolution to be able to consider agenda items 9 and 10 in private session, and the live stream will be switched off at that point. I will take each of the reports in turn in the order they appear on the agenda, which has been published on the Council's website. For each of the reports, I will ask the relevant officer to introduce the item. I will then ask members if they have any questions, and will then ask if members wish to make a comment on the report. I will then ask members if they wish to approve the recommendations contained in the report. In terms of etiquette for the meeting, can I propose the following? Only one speaker at a time who should state their name before speaking. Only speak when invited to do so. Everyone should mute their microphone and turn off their video unless they are speaking. If referring to any specific points in a report, please specify the page number. Please don't shuffle papers around when the microphones are switched on, as this may interfere with sound. If the screen freezes while someone is speaking, I will attempt to wait a little while to give the member officer the opportunity to repeat what they are saying. Moving on to the agenda, item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any, Dave?
I haven't received any, Chair.
Okay, and I see Malcolm's here now as well. Welcome, Malcolm.
Thank you. Yeah.
Item 2, declarations of interest. I would now ask members who wish to declare an interest in any of the items of business on the agenda to make that declaration now. No? Okay. If we could move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 29th of July, and I sign them as a correct record. If each of the members could turn on their microphones and confirm.
Agreed.
Yes. Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, which is Audit Quality Inspection Report, which is on pages 9 to 44. Can I ask Janice Gillespie to introduce the item, and then I believe she will hand over to Stephen Reid of EY. Janice, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As set out in the report, the Financial Reporting Council is responsible for monitoring the quality of major local audits that are delivered and defined, as part of the local audit professional and major local audit regulations 2014. And as part of the sampling for 2018-19, I've put 19-20 and it was actually 18-19's audit. Ernst Young were chosen as part of the sample testing. So I included as an attachment the report that the FRC published. But I think it will be good to hear from Stephen for the committee to understand perhaps the process that was gone through and the feedback that Ernst Young had as part of that process.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Stephen, would you like to comment now?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Janice. Yes, the report is before committee. Clearly, the Audit Committee has a key role in considering the quality of the external audit function, and it's been and us as external auditor. And Chair, you'll recall at a previous meeting that was subject to some consideration. As Janice said, the Financial Reporting Council, which is a principal regulator, published this report before committee on the 30th of October, which summarises their review of all of the major firms providing external audit services across local authorities in England, major local audits in England. There's a few pages of the report, Chair. With your permission, I'll just draw to committee's attention. The first page that I would draw to committee's attention is the overall summary of the results by the FRC, and that's published on or provided on page 16 of the pack, which shows for the 7 firms that were inspected the results of the reviews. The FRC in effect review a selection of audit files by auditors, files created by auditors and undertaking audits of local authorities. And following that review and discussion with the audit team, they grade each of the files both in the context of the financial statement opinion and also in the context of the value for money work and opinion. And the chart on page 16 summarises the results. There are 3 grades: good or limited improvements, improvements required, significant improvements required. And at the far left-hand side of that chart on page 16, committee will see that in 1920, the gradings provided were of the audit selected were 6 good or limited improvements required, 7 improvements required, and 2 significant improvements required. And that was on the financial statement opinion. On page 17, all value for money reviews for all 7 firms inspected were graded good or with limited improvement. I then, Chair, take committee to page 28, which summarises the results for EY as the Council's external auditor. And that shows for the 3 audits of EYs which were reviewed in 1920, which, as Janice said, related to audits undertaken in 1819. Those were graded with good or limited improvements, which is a very pleasing result, reflecting the investment that as a firm we have and continue to do in our public sector audit practice and the quality arrangement supporting that. Of those 3 that were selected, as Janice said, one of them was the 1819 audit specifically for Tyneside Council, and that was the first year of our appointment as external auditor. So just also wanted to draw that to the committee. And therefore, as a result, I can confirm that we received a grade of good or limited in relation to the 19 audit of the council. There are a number of good practice observations throughout the report, as well as the report of the FRC highlight. Many of those relate our approach to the audit of local government across England, and particularly highlighting our work of special judgments around property valuation and pension valuation. So those comments, Chair, have to take question.
Okay, thank you. Does any member have a question, please? Would any of the members have a comment? In that case, can I ask all members to turn on their microphones and ask if members wish to approve the recommendations contained in the report?
Agreed.
Agreed, Chair.
Agreed.
Okay, moving on to item 5 on the agenda, 2019-20 Annual Financial Report. That's on pages 45 to 282. And can I invite Janice Gillespie to introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, we're at the point now where we've almost reached the conclusion, absolutely, of the audit of the 2019-20 accounts. So what you have before you are the audited statements, or amended as recommended by external audit. The report itself takes you through kind of the highlights of the statement of accounts, which the committee have seen before. They were originally published earlier this year in accordance with the amended timetable. So there's been lots of, I guess, time for questions, etc., and with regards to the accounts. I think it's probably fair to say that, and I know Stephen and may come in and comment that my understanding is, despite the challenges of COVID, the teams have worked very well with Ernst Young in order to conclude the audit as efficiently as possible. We've absolutely worked remotely with Ernst Young, and that's kind of testament to the teams, to the effort that they've put in to conclude the preparation of the accounts and concluded the audit. I wasn't proposing to go through any further detail on the report itself, other than probably as part of this process, ask either Stephen or Stuart to take us through their final report, which starts on page, I'm just whizzing down on the screen, starts on page 233 of the committee papers.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to take committee through the report. Chair, with your permission, I'll start and then I'll hand over to Stuart Kenny to highlight a few key aspects of the result of the audit. I suppose worth just reminding committee the purpose of this report is to support the committee in scrutinising the financial statements following the audit process. As the Section 151 officer highlighted, this year has not been a typical year, and we all recognise that, and particularly for the preparation of financial statement and for conducting the audit. All of that has been largely conducted remotely. This is the second year of our appointment as external auditor of the authority, and I do want to go on record to thank Janice, Claire and the rest of the team for supporting us and being so responsive to us and supporting us in being able to conclude our work and report to you today. The teams, my and Janice's team, I can confirm, have worked very well together and under particularly challenging circumstances. I can confirm, Chair, that I do intend to issue an unqualified opinion on both the financial statements and on value for money. Our audit is largely complete. We have highlighted on page 237 of the pack those areas which at this time of the audit process would naturally be outstanding, and we are concluding those matters with a view to signing our opinion over the next number of days. We have identified a few control observations within the report, and I'll ask Stuart now, Chair, just to pick up and highlight a few aspects of the findings from our work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. So if I could just talk the committee through the report starting on page 241, which is section 2 of our report, areas of audit focus. And in this section, we've really just highlighted the risks that we set out in our original audit plan that we presented back in July to the committee. And so what I was planning to do is just take you through these risks and just let you know where we are in terms of the status. So the first risk that we've got there on page 241 is the risk of fraud in revenue and expenditure recognition. Now, this is a standard risk that we have on every single audit. And after, at this point in time, we have now concluded our work in relation to this particular risk. We have no issues to report, no material issues to report that impact upon our opinion. On page 242, we've then set out our next risk, which is in relation to misstatements due to fraud or error. And this is essentially the old management override of controls. So no matter how good the controls are in any organisation, there will always be individuals who are sufficiently senior that they could override those controls. Again, this is a risk that we look at on every single audit. And after completing our procedures, we haven't identified any issues in that particular area. If I could then just ask you to turn to page 243. So this relates to the valuation of land and buildings. So as the committee is aware, this is an area that we have a number of challenges in, and essentially there are a number of key assumptions that drive these valuations. This year, it's been further complicated by the impact of COVID-19, and especially in relation to the issuance of guidance by the Institute of Chartered Surveyors earlier this year regarding material uncertainty on property valuations, which essentially stated that as a result of the impact of COVID-19, there could be a material uncertainty around the valuations as the impact wasn't fully known at that particular point in time. We haven't yet fully concluded on our work in this particular area. However, we are just working through the last few bits, and we don't expect there to be any significant issues arising. However, what we have done is on page 244 is we've just identified two matters to bring to the committee's attention. The first is in relation to the BCIS indices, which is essentially a main driver around, I think it's roughly 70% of the council's assets. We identified that as part of the work that the council's valuer did in this particular area. They used the BCIS indices at the date that they completed the property valuation, which was the 1st of April. But these weren't then subsequently updated to the 31st of March 2020. We've then recalculated the impact of this and identified a reduction in the value of assets of 968,000, which is immaterial. As a result, we've just noted that for the committee's attention, but it does not impact upon our final audit opinion. The second area is in relation to the material uncertainty that I've just discussed. We've just highlighted there that we've assessed this particular issue in relation to the material uncertainty around the valuations at North Tyneside, and we're comfortable that this does not impact materially upon the value that the council has in their financial statements in relation to property valuations. However, we have asked and worked with officers in order to enhance the disclosures in the financial statements in this area, just to make that really clear to the user of the accounts. If I could then just ask you to turn to page 245, where we've set out the next risk, which is in relation to going concern and the impact of COVID-19. So this is an area where we've done a significant amount of additional work in comparison to previous years. And this is really in order to understand the impact of COVID-19 on the council and the future financial sustainability of the council for a period of at least 12 months from the date that we are proposing to sign. After completing our work in this area, we are comfortable that there are no issues regarding the council not being a going concern. However, we have identified some improvement points in relation to the disclosures that were made in the draft accounts, and these have been actioned by officers. So the draft accounts have been updated. The next risk is then on page 246. And again, this is very much a standard risk that we have on all of our local government audits. And this really relates to the pension liability and the fact that, again, this is based on a number of detailed and complex assumptions. We've now concluded our work in this area, which we concluded as a result of receiving the IAS 19 assurance letter from the auditor of Tyne and Wear Pension Fund. And after completing our work, we have identified one issue, which is in relation to the pension asset value that was submitted to the actuary to base this valuation on. Is slightly different to the value that has been audited by the pension fund auditor. Now, we have done a calculation around this particular area, and we estimate that the impact of that on North Tyneside's accounts would be around about 2.9 million. Again, that's immaterial, so we are not concerned about that particular area, but that has just come to light over the past 24 hours. The final risk that we included in our audit plan and that we're commenting on here is in relation to group financial statements. So as the committee will be aware, this is the first year that the council has prepared group accounts. We've reviewed the initial assessment around whether group accounts were required, and we agree with the assessment made by officers that the group accounts are needed. And we've also completed our other procedures in terms of auditing those group balances. And after concluding and completing those procedures, we are comfortable that the group financial statements are materially correct. If I could now just ask you to turn to page 255 of the pack. So on page 255 of the pack, we've just set out a summary of the adjusted differences that we've identified during the audit process. Now, the main thing that I just want to draw to your attention here is, first of all, the majority of these differences really relate to disclosure items in the accounts and don't impact upon the primary statements. And in addition, I just want to highlight that these have, with the exception of one on page 256, these have all been adjusted by officers. And as a result, we are content that the issues that we have identified have been amended and taken seriously by management. On page 256, we've just set out the adjustment that I mentioned on the previous in the previous slides regarding property, plant and equipment valuation. And basically, this is an area that hasn't been adjusted by management, which we are comfortable with as it's not material. If I could then just ask you to turn to page 258, we've just set out the work that we've performed in relation to our value for money conclusion. So as I'm sure you can remember from our audit plan, we identified one significant risk. However, we have gone back and we've reassessed the environment and in particular the impact of COVID-19 on our value for money assessment, just to make sure that we didn't have any other significant risks that needed additional attention. And we're comfortable that the one significant risk that we identified in relation to financial sustainability is the only risk that we have at the moment at the council, from a significant risk that we have at the moment at the council. We've just set out on page 259 the procedures that we've performed and our conclusions, but I can confirm that we have now completed these procedures and we're comfortable that there are no issues arising, as the council has proper arrangements in place in order to deal with this particular risk. The final area that I just wanted to highlight is on page 261 in section 6 of the report. And this relates to whole of government accounts. So at the time of writing this report, the relevant NAO guidance had not actually been issued in relation to the procedures that we are required to complete as part of our WGA work. However, the NAO guidance has now been released, and that was released late last week. And as a result, we are currently working through that, and we're proposing, well, we feel that we will be in a position to submit our return to the NAO by the deadline of the 4th of December. However, I just wanted to draw that to the attention of the committee. And at that point, I think I'll just pass over to Stephen just to conclude on the report, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Stuart. And then finally, Chair, moving into other reporting issues and the assessment of the control environment. We have nothing to draw to the committee's attention in relation to other reporting issues and the assessment of the control environment. We've discussed these areas with management, and these areas have been accepted by management and recognised as areas where enhancements could be made. Section 8 onwards confirms our independence and also discloses the fees together with the other areas that we're required to report under auditing standards set out within the various appendices. We've included a copy of our management representation letter at Appendix D, Chair, so draw that to the committee's attention and ask that in due course we'll require that to be signed by the Section 151 officer, the Head of Resources, and the Chair, yourself, Chair of the Audit Committee. It's very happy to pause there.
Okay, well, many thanks to the three of you for that detailed report. Can I ask if any members have any questions?
Councillor Wallace, Chair.
Councillor Wallace, yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just with regard to the audit differences which we notified of. Page 256 I'm looking at in the audit papers. I'm just wondering what the explanation is for the failure to adjust the differences with regard to property, plant and equipment. The previous page had a list of all the things which had been adjusted, and I'm wondering why that one has not been adjusted. I note that it's not regarded as material, but I'm just wondering what the reason is, please.
Okay.
Chair, I can respond to that. I guess in terms of the disclosure adjustments, they tend to be single item adjustments that don't flow through the whole of the accounts. In terms of the property, plant and equipment, adjusting for that flows through a whole range of notes and pages within the accounts, would create a lot of work, but that's not the reason for not disclosing it. It is not material at the point of valuing the assets, and it didn't, it's a point in time judgment view on the whether or not it impacts on for the reader of the accounts. And my view is it's not material, therefore doesn't need adjustment.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Councillor Wallace.
Right, thank you. I note the answer. Thank you.
Chair Stuart Kenny wants to come in.
Okay, Stuart, please.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to add to what Janice mentioned there. So in terms of that particular issue, that is something that we see across all of our clients. So essentially what happens is you value your assets at the 1st of April, and then your valuers have done a reassessment of the impact as well and concluded that it was immaterial. So they haven't then recommended to the council that it's adjusted. So we're comfortable as it's not material. The valuers are comfortable that their valuation is still materially correct. So on that basis, we were comfortable. However, what I would say is that the valuers, based on the conversations that we've had with the valuers and our expectations of valuers elsewhere, is that when they do their reassessment, if they'd identified that it was a material movement, they would seek to advise the council that it was needed to make that adjustment. So I just wanted to add that additional context.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Do we have any other questions from members? Do we have any comments from the members? In that case, can I ask all members to turn on their microphones and ask if members wish to approve the recommendations contained in the report?
Yes, agreed.
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 Yes, agreed.
Okay, many thanks to Janice, Stephen and Stuart. Moving on to item 6, annual governance statement. This is on pages 283 to 320. Could I ask Janice Gillespie to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As the report sets out, this is an update to the annual governance statement for the period of 1920, and also considers any activity subsequently reported to the committee. I think what I would say at the outset is the report does not highlight any issues of governance concern, and that we continue to have, I guess, appropriate governance arrangements in place that meet the requirements that we have in order to make appropriate decisions and manage the authority. We continue to have areas of risk, I guess, that we continue to keep an eye on. They are captured in the action plan in Appendix A, and we will continue to monitor those and then report back to the committee in due course. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Janice. Any questions, members? Members have any comments?
There's no hands raised, Chair.
Okay, can I ask all members to turn on the microphones and ask if members wish to approve the recommendations contained in the report?
Agreed.
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 Okay, thank you. If we can move on to item 7, which is key outcomes from internal audit reports issued between 2nd of July 2020 and 2nd of November 2020. That's on pages 321 to 336. And could I ask Kevin MacDonald to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, this is one of our regular reports which we bring to committee periodically, which just provides members with a summary of recent internal audit reports which have been formally issued. If I could draw members' attention to the table on page 329, which if the members are familiar with the format where of the 4 internal audit reports formally issued during the period, for each page we just give a brief summary of work undertaken, some of the good practice items found, and some of the issues that we identified, along with action that's been taken by management since the report was formally issued. We have details of 4 reports included within the report this evening, one of which received a full assurance opinion, and the remaining 3 received a significant audit opinion, which is a good level of assurance provided in those 4 reports. As members will be aware, we also undertake evidence checking of those actions which management say they've then implemented following our recommendations, and we summarise that on page 333. As members will recall from when we last presented this report to committee in July, we've been unable to take some of that evidence checking because of the pandemic arrangements. We've subsequently got back to all of those in July so that they weren't missed, to make sure that we picked up the evidence checking from the previous report in addition to the current report, and that's outlined on that page, Chair. And then finally, because of obviously the pandemic arrangements and the fact that as a team we are undertaking some additional work which wouldn't necessarily result in a formal audit report, we just thought it would be worthwhile to outline some of that and summarise some of that additional work, and that's in the short summary on page 335 of the report, Chair. I wouldn't propose to say anything more than that, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Do we have any questions from the members?
No hands raised, Chair.
No hands raised. In that case, do we have any comments from the members?
Again, Chair, no hands raised.
In that case, can I ask all members to turn on the microphones and ask if members wish to approve the recommendations contained in the report?
Yes.
Agreed. Okay, before moving on to the exclusion resolution, can I thank any members of the public who are watching this live stream or listening to it? And then move on to item 8, which is the exclusion resolution. Can I ask all members to turn on their microphones and request members to agree to pass the exclusion resolution for agenda items 9 and 10 as they contain exempt information?
Agreed.
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 It's great. The resolution has been passed, and that will now mean that the live stream will be switched off